What's going on, Guardians? It's Tizzle here, and holy hell did Bungie cook with the new Titan aspect, Storm's Keep. I remember reading the patch notes and basically salivating. And oddly, I haven't really seen anyone talking about this build. Granted, I don't really watch build videos, but I've been seeing tons of Geomag thumbnails everywhere. And I had the thumbnail for this video made over a month ago because I knew this build was gonna cook. So as Kendrick Lamar says, let me put y'all on game and show you what I'm cooking here. So way back in the day, I used to run Insurmountable Skullfort and Gambit, and I would run it on Middle Tree because that tree had Ballistic Slam and Thunder Crash. And then for Primeval damage, I would simply swap to Cuirass and demolish the boss. But what no one seems to realize about Ballistic Slam is getting kills with it gives tons of bonus super energy. I guess because no one really ever uses it. But for a build where the exotic buffs your super damage, this is obviously very useful because it means you'll be getting more supers, making this build even better. But now, we don't even need to armor swap from Skullfort because Cuirass and Ballistic Slam now have some good things going for them. So let's break it down. Let's start with the exotic Cuirass of the Falling Star. It has the exotic trait Glorious Charge. Greatly increase your Thunder Crash damage and grants you damage resistance after impact. Melee final blows while amplified grant you super energy. So let's pay attention to the last part because a lot of people forget that it does that. But melee final blows grant you super energy when amplified. I originally was going to make this video and just have it be another Consecration Slam Titan build on Prismatic, but goddamn did Bungie cook with Arc Titan, so I actually think this version is just as good. I mean, you can see in the background footage how hard it cooks, and having an instant delete button for a super is very beneficial in GM content. So the Destiny Data Compendium doesn't have a whole lot of info on how much extra super energy your melee kills get, but any extra is solid, right? And if we pair that with the aspect knockout, then we can actually get charged melee kills even with our basic melee. This also procs things like heavy-handed to make orbs and gives us our health back from knockout. So it's very good, and that health regen lets us play aggressively. So we can then use our Ballistic Slam and be very aggressive, but hopefully still be able to escape to cover because of the health that we get from knockout. So next I want to look at Ballistic Slam, because it too recently got buffed. It now does more damage the higher you cast your melee from. I've seen clips on Twitter and they are wild, but basically there's no cap to the damage. This allows it to hit very hard if used properly, though it won't always be practical. That being said, it still did get a base damage buff, which it definitely needed. So it got a 30% damage buff and ease of use buff, making it trigger far faster than it used to, which is really nice. And it grants Bolt Charge for each enemy hit. And Bolt Charge grants us melee energy. So now we can get our melees back much faster, which will allow us to get more Ballistic Slams, which give us bonus super energy, and that means more T-crashes. So that brings us to the next aspect, Storm's Keep. This aspect is a monster. It states, cast your class ability to grant a moderate amount of Bolt Charge stacks to you and nearby allies. While behind your barricade, you and allies gain stacks of Bolt Charge over time, and your weapons can discharge max stacks of Bolt Charge. So this aspect is honestly nuts, and it will be a meta damage strat in raids going forward because it adds a ton of damage. But it's also great solo, and it applies Bolt Charge like the easiest way possible, and this will feed your melee energy. So it's truly powerful for a number of reasons, and this season in particular, it's even better because we have the artifact mod Defibrillating Blast where we get max stacks of Bolt Charge when we stun a champion, which does a huge chunk of damage to them, and it also heals you and jolts combatants that it hits. The healing is exceptional, and it's the reason for people being able to one-phase the Zoetic lock set solo on Titan. And the footage you are seeing now is a scuff damage phase on Master Difficulty where we still get a one-phase. So yeah, this aspect is insane. And there's another artifact mod called Flashover where when you gain max Bolt Charge, you also become amplified. And lightning bolts deal even more damage. The compendium shows this to be 150% more damage, and we'll be proccing this all the time with Storm's Keep. Seriously, I had theory crafted this build before this episode started, but when I finally got to take it for a spin, I was shocked at how good it was. The Lost Sector gameplay is more than GM power delta. I was anywhere from -30 to -26 light in these clips. So yeah, this build will absolutely fry in GMs, and I'm so happy about it. I've always loved Cuirass of the Falling Star, and this build is awesome right now. For Fragments, there are basically 5 that you can run, so depending on your build or playstyle, pick from these. I like Spark of Resistance for 25% more damage resistance when surrounded by 3 or more enemies. This pairs with the 30% DR that we get from having 100 resilience, and then I didn't mention it, but Amplified got a buff this episode to give you 15% damage resistance, and it makes enemies less accurate, and the accuracy thing is super noticeable. So many times I thought I was about to die only for the enemy to miss. It makes arc builds so much better in endgame now, and I'm all here for it. Next is Spark of Discharge. It gives -10 to strength, but it allows arc weapons to make an ionic trace. Obviously, if you don't have arc weapons, this is useless, but traces are great for ability uptime. It also gives us a stack of bolt charge when we pick up a trace. I love Spark of Shock to jolt targets with our pulse grenades, and I run pulse because they're very strong, and the jolting grenades is great against overload champions. Spark of Beacons blinds enemies when amplified with special or heavy weapons. Obviously, again, you'd need to be running arc weapons to take advantage of this, but I highly recommend running arc weapons, and blind is an insanely powerful verb, so this is really strong. Spark of Frequency is also a decent play where melee hits increase your equipped weapon's reload speed and stability for a short duration. And while amplified, the effects are increased and you gain increased stacks of bolt charge from all sources, including your Storm's Keep barricade. For that reason, this is a great pick as well. But yeah, pick any 4 of those 5 and you'll be good. Alright, so for the mods, depending on the content, like in GM content, you may not want double hands-on because it may be hard in certain GMs to get lots of melee kills. So if that was the case, I would go with 1 hands-on and 1 ashes to assets, or even maybe just a heavy ammo finder, and then harmonic siphon to make orbs, which is obviously going to help give you your super quicker. So yeah, something like this looks really good. And then on the gloves, we've got heavy-handed, so when we do get a melee kill, we're going to make an orb. Impact Induction, causing damage with powered melee attacks, reduces your grenade cooldown, and then causing damage with a grenade reduces your melee cooldown with momentum transfer. So it just helps us get more abilities. Then just resist mods on the chest piece, but if it was in like a dungeon or something, obviously go with reserve mods. And then on the boots, I like Innervation, Invigoration, and Absolution. You don't need Recuperation because Knockout is going to give you that when you use your Ballistic Slam, but you could also do Recuperation just for some passive health as you're running around. Maybe you pick up an orb, so Recuperation is also good, and you could also go Arc Scavenger, or even Surges, again, if it was on like a dungeon boss or something. And then on the Artifact, again, if it was dungeon bosses, go Time Dilation with Surges. But in general play like GMs, I like Outreach and Bomber, as it's going to give us chunks of grenade and melee energy when we put down our barricade, which we do a ton, because we want to be proccing Storm's Keep as much as we can. And then 1-2 Finisher. Again, this one isn't needed, but it is really good depending on the content. If you're really trying to min-max getting as many ballistic slams as you can, then when you do a finisher, you're going to get a bunch of melee energy back. And then for weapons, we've got Anti-Barrier Sidearm, and Breachlight with Pugilist is obviously great because it will help give you your melee back. And then Swashbuckler, just an obvious pairing. I love this thing. Such a great sidearm. Or you could go with like Tenacious Mastery. You've got Anti-Barrier, and then you've got Overload with Chill Clip, and then also Unstoppable because it can freeze after 3 Chill Clip shots. So this is another great option. I love Glaives, but you could go Fusion Rifles as well. Nezarek's Whisper with Demolitionist and Frenzy is awesome, and I adore this build with Thunderlord. It's so good. And then I touched on a few of the artifact mods already, but yeah, Defibrillating Blast is a must, and then Heavy Ordnance Regeneration is really nice if you're running Thunderlord, which I really like to run with this build. Flashover, you become amplified when you gain max bolt charge, so you're pretty much always amplified, which I talked about, gives you the damage resistance. And then Lightning Bolts deal more damage. Hold the line while surrounded. Machine guns and glaives gain increased reload speed and stability, and final blows heal you. The final blows healing you when you're just laying into things with Thunderlord or even a glaive is very handy, so I love that. Dielectric, defeating arc debuff targets grants bolt charge. Again, just more bolt charge. It's awesome. Defeating an exhausted or severed target with arc damage releases a blinding burst. This is kind of niche, but pretty good. But if you were running it with Breachlight, then you can have Unraveling Orbs. Picking up an Orb of Power grants Strand Weapons Unraveling rounds. And then, oh sorry, it's Severed. I thought it was any Strand. So never mind, it won't pair with that. But if you had something like Slice, then you could Sever, and then proc Photonic Flare, and then Overclock and Load while amplified, or have Bolt Charge. Arc weapons gain increased handling and reload speed, which just feels really great on these weapons. Again, you could run something like Darcy or Queenbreaker as well, or Delicate Tomb. You could run here instead, and then you could run something like Watchful Eye, which can roll with Jolting Feedback, or you could run Rolling Storm, but it's probably a little overkill on Titan. But yeah, that's it for like the mods and weapon selections. So yeah. I also didn't mention it, but you want 100 resilience and then just as high of strength and discipline as you can get. But yeah, that's about it. This build is insanely powerful and I've had a ton of fun using it. I hope the video was helpful and informative, and if it was, a like would be greatly appreciated. And if you're still here, thanks so much for watching to the end. I'll catch you in the next one. Take care. Hey, if you're still here, then thanks so much for watching to the end. If you like what I do and you want to support me further, then consider becoming a channel member. You'll get your name featured on the end screen, custom badges, and other cool rewards. You can also join my community Discord if that interests you, and if you want to see me stream, be sure to follow me on Twitch at itstizzle7 where I stream semi-regularly. Those are linked in the description. Anyways, that's enough self-promotion. Thanks for watching. Take care.